Hey everybody, how we doing? Back here for Algebra 2 again, moving into the second chapter. Hopefully everybody had success in the first chapter. Moving on here with the notes. Today we're going to talk about slope intercept form. Okay, it's in section 2-3 in the book. The essential question is, what is slope intercept form? Well, we're going to split them up and talk about slope first, and then what the y-intercept is and the x-intercept, and then we'll put them together and look at the equation. What is slope? Slope is the ratio of vertical change over the horizontal change. It's rise over run. Okay, you've heard that before. It's also a rate of change. When you think of miles per hour, things like that, those are all descriptions of slope. It's a rate of change. The equation you should be familiar with, rise over run, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. That's your vertical rise or fall. That's where your negative can come from. And then your horizontal change. Okay. Speaking of positive and negatives, when I look at slope, I always think of going up or down. Up if it's a positive slope, down if it's a negative slope, and then always going to the right. There's other ways of thinking about it. I'm just going to stay with that the whole way through. Here you can see a rise, so it went up and then to the right. That gives you a positive slope. When the line is going up and to the right, that's a positive slope. When it's going down, you can think here it's going down and to the right. So there's your negative component, and there's a positive component going to the right, but a negative over a positive gives you a negative slope. So if the slope is falling to the right, it's negative. If you have a flat line, horizontal, zero slope. It's not no slope, it's zero. It's flat. Okay? No slope is when you have a vertical line, because when you go from one point to another on the graph, you go up or down, but you don't go to the right or left. So that would put 0 in the denominator for your x, and we can't have 0 in the denominator, so we have no slope there. Okay? So positive, negative, 0, and no slope. Equation. All right, how do we find the slope? Just an example here. Here's 2 points. You want to find the slope of the line that goes through those 2 points. Since this is labeled first, I called it x1 and y1. It doesn't matter. So this one will be x2 and y2. And just plug everything in. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Don't forget minus the negative is a positive. You get negative 3 over 1, which is the slope of negative 3. So it's going to go down and to the right. That line does, so it's got a negative slope. Okay? All this stuff we hit pretty hard in Algebra 1. You saw it last year some in geometry, so it should be pretty familiar to you. What is an intercept? It's where the line crosses the x-axis. That gives you your x-intercept. And the y-axis, when you cross the y-axis, that's your y-intercept. Okay? So wherever we cross those axes gives us our intercepts. Our slope-intercept form equation should look familiar to you. Y equals mx plus b. I like to use this the most in the class. It's used the most in your book too. There are some other ones that we'll touch on. But again, just like with slope, I like to kind of pick one thing and go with it to try to confuse you as little as possible. When we look at this equation, the x and the y are points on the line. Anywhere on the graph of our line, pick any point and that gives you the x and y that would fit into here. The m, of course, is the slope of our line, and the b is our y-intercept. Okay? It's the y-coordinate of that point where it crosses the y-axis. Of course, x would be 0 because you're on the y-axis. So wherever it crosses it, that y-coordinate is b. Okay? That's our y-intercept. All right? Y equals mx plus b. Again, should look familiar to you. Okay, write the linear equation in slope-intercept form. Very simple example that we'll start off with in problems tomorrow. Given the slope, given the y-intercept, there's the y-coordinate of the y-intercept, so that's our b. Just plug them in. There's my m, there's my b. Okay, the y and the x, we just leave them y and x, and remember they just represent points on the line. If you're given something like this, this is what we call standard form. We'll talk about that some more later. But how do you get this into the slope-intercept form? Solve for y. Just like we did in the last chapter when you're solving for a variable. If anything is being added or subtracted to it, do the opposite operation to get it to the other side. That cancels out. Don't forget that minus comes down with the 4y. And I'm going to keep this in that y equals mx plus b form. If you wrote 16 minus 5x, it's still correct. Okay? It just looks a little funny because it's not in that form. So I just switched them. Keep the signs with them. Divide out the negative 4 all the way across. So y equals negative over negative is a positive. There's my slope, 5/4. Positive over negative gives me a negative. There's my y-intercept. Okay? So slope, y-intercept, we put them together, we get the slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. Hopefully this looks familiar to you. We'll work some problems here tomorrow in class, and then a little application of that the next day. Okay, hopefully this has been helpful. Have a good one until we see you again.